on a Monday night, and we're coming to you early just to make up for all those other times. A man ahead of his time has got to be late every chance he gets to take the average out of it.
That didn't work when I got stopped by the cops and told him I stopped twice at the last stop sign.
Well, we know it all works to your advantage in the long run, David.
You just have to tell him you didn't have the intent of rolling past the stop sign.
I certainly
It'll
didn't.
give you the Hillary Clinton let-off.
No prosecutor in the right mind. Hey, we're back again for another exciting edition of 3D Politics. Tom McKay, your most amazing host here. I've got all three Davids early and ready to roll. The most important Davids in Oklahoma. I got David Van, David Oldham, and David D'Ambroso here with the 3D Politics gang. I'm Tom McKay, your fantastic host. And guess what? Mayor Bynum stood strong today against the throngs wanting him to go wild on a national search to bring someone from out of Tulsa, but he said, oh, no, really? And to me, I think it's a whole fake fight. There's a big fake group of people trying to pretend that they're pressurizing the mayor, and the mayor's pretending that he's tough because they all want the same thing, is to nationalize the search. But thankfully, it looks like they're going to go ahead and pick a local guy.
I want to know, is Johnny Cochran one of the finalists?
I don't know.
He's getting a little old.
But they keep,
That's fine with them.
But literally, in the news today, they were talking about how the ranks of the officers play out a certain way, but there is one black guy. So
O.J.
now,
Simpson?
So now the race...
Always one.
But the point is the concept of the news that the race may trump the level of service and the level of accomplishment as the rank. So at some point, wouldn't you think in a police station, you would want the higher rank to take on the higher position? But now, just simply having a skin color may qualify you for that. It competes with rank.
Well, now that's leftist theory for over 60 years at this point.
I'm just
It's
catching
not
on.
new.
Well, at least GT is standing, tall as he can behind, picking a guy local.
Well, the last people I saw pick someone of lower rank to take over, it was the Gambino circuit of the mafia. What was the guy's name? The Teflon Don.
Yeah,
he
that was Gotti.
John Gotti shot his way to the top.
So we've got a lot of things to talk about. We're going to talk to Oldham about the trip to New Jersey. We've got a story about milk and also a school lunch program story. But before we get there, I want to talk more about this mayor deal. You know about the live PD show?
Yeah.
And they want him to take away the live PD show. What's your thoughts on that, David's?
If you don't get physically ill like I do when you watch Live PD and Cops and Police Nation or all those different shows, check your morals.
Gosh.
No. The reason is because virtually every single show, has numerous violations of rights. And originally, when they pulled it, it was because the cop violated this man's rights at the trunk of his car and was violating his rights. And the man pushed back, rightly so, and told the cop where he could stick it. Pretty much.
And what was that, David?
And I know
public morals.
I know this man. He ended up back in therapy for his mental health. It triggered an instability in his severe mental health.
Well, and so the thing is, and this leads to my whole problem with GT Bynum and the that board he was trying to set up, that civilian review board and all of that. It's all an excuse to get him out from having to actually perform his job and exercise his duty to his oath of office. And that is to fire somebody who's not doing their job, to rein in the police force and make that police force constitutional. It's not happening. It's not going to happen anytime soon until we, the people, stand up and say, it's got to happen. It's got to happen now.
More precisely to the show itself, philosophically, the argument is that this police show is for entertainment purposes.
Well, and it's the worst form. Tom, when my grandmother married into the Van Rissichem family, her mother-in-law sat her down in a lecture at the farmhouse, and said, "You never go into town with an apron on, with a dirty dress on, or without your hair fixed up. You're a Van Risseghem now. You are to be seen as a Van Risseghem." You know, it's this whole deal, right? Well, you imagine if at the worst time possible, your family's in a crisis and you've got to get help. Are you ready to be on national TV at that moment? If you're dealing with a family member who's unstable, if you have to call the cops on your
son, sign a
son,
waiver or no
Yeah.
to release their personal likeness, their appearance on film?
I don't know.
No, not in public.
No,
No, not in
I'm
public.
telling you, if somebody's in
No, but they do blank out some of the faces, so
It's
they're-
very interesting.
they must be, if they're convicted, it probably becomes a public domain.
it really bothers me in so many ways that, and I'll just take what the civil rights leaders in North Tulsa said. They're preying on these people at the worst, most vulnerable
Yes,
time
they
in
are.
their lives, and they're making a spectacle so the rest of us can laugh at them.
Well, and it goes beyond that, because the police who are on camera end up performing.
Yeah.
And so they end up doing things they may or may not regularly do.
Like
Yeah.
juggling? What are you talking
And
about?
it's, well, they,
A lot of these calls are domestic disputes. And if a woman's having to call on a drunk husband, does she really feel like she wants to be on TV? They don't ask. They just show up with the camera crew.
well, and it's more than that. It's like the guy at the trunk. The cop, you could tell the cop kind of was doing his thing, and he was blustery, and he was saying, this is a drug thing. Look at his blue shirt.
Well,
this
yeah.
and that, the
Have
other
you
thing.
ever met a
him on.
police officer
And then-
before?
and then only afterwards did he then corroborate it with police files and justified himself.
Sure.
But he went about what he was doing, and whether or not he actually had a legitimate case or not. The complaint, especially of Live PD, has been that when they are shooting, there are more incidents with the public than normal. And the public knows, stay off the streets, stay behaved, especially during these times, because
You're
you're going
saying
to
it's a
get
good
more
thing?
police action.
It's actually, I think I see your point. It was my point against the Ed Ocules concept, that the minute that the referee has a name, they begin to perform instead of simply being part of the playing field.
Exactly.
However, to play devil's advocate for the fun of the discussion, I mean, if there are so many abuses of the Constitution that are captured on film on these shows, then can't that also be used to prove these abuses of the Constitution? You could use the same footage to show that point then.
No.
Yes and no.
I doubt that they're going to actually. Who has the editorial power here? Do the citizens? No.
He's saying that in the edited version, these constitutional violations are evidence. There they are. So,
Well,
I mean, why should somebody use that
the
as
problem is
fodder?
The courts don't agree with Oldham yet.
We're
Well-
getting there.
well, the thing is that we, the people, have to understand this stuff, and that's why I say check your morals, because we actually inform the courts. We are the ones that make up what they do. Remember that all politicians, and judges are politicians too, they are corks in the row of the current consciousness, the current spirit of the public. So where the public is, that's where they're going to be. And so if the majority of the public is lawless, that is where the government is.
What
going
is
to
it
be.
about these people with the pocket search? Have you seen the pocket search? They're like, okay, look, I'm going to search your pocket. Okay, is there anything in your pocket that's sharp going to poke me? No, there's another. Well, what's this hypodermic needle? Oh man, it's not mine. It's not my nerve. What's it doing in your pocket? It's
That's
not
the
my
best.
pocket.
These aren't my pants.
Well, that's not my pants. Exactly right.
It's not my shirt.
So at some point, this show could teach them how to deal with the police.
It'll teach the criminals how to lie better.
Say, these are my pants.
Well,
these are my pockets.
Well, I mean, obviously,
there's
the
a
police are
hypodermic
assuming
needle
that you
in
could
my
be lying
pocket.
to them.
Tom, your example is perfect. Is a perfect example of an unconstitutional
David?
violation.
I made a perfect example.
Because the point is that the cop has no right to be putting the the subject in jeopardy with the finding of a needle, but because it's called a crime.
Well,
when he hasn't
I'm
done
talking
anything to
about
anybody.
the pocket search after it's become. But so my to try to get through this. I remember in the 30s. Remember that, David?
Oh yeah, I remember.
And they
Those
said,
are great
hey,
days. aren't they?
let's get police cars to have radios. Why?
Yeah.
Because you can't outrun the radio. Will
Right.
end the high-speed chase.
That's
and as
right.
we know, the high-speed chases are so much fun that we're not going to end those things. And the radio's just like, here I come. Woohoo!
Well, and then came the helicopters, and that was supposed to take care of it
sure,
too.
and that'll keep
Oh,
them
it just
alive.
makes for good
So-
TV.
So so they want them to use the body cam and to have it on 24/7. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
that's not the worst idea. But if you're going to do away with something, don't try to do away with live PD. Do away with the high-speed chase. Let's get on with that radio thing. What is this
Well,
high-speed
it's the TV
chase?
that's making the high-speed chase often.
Well, there's your performance. It's bullet all over again.
Somewhat.
Tom, I have a problem with the people who have to call the police in the moment of their agony. Do not ask to be a TV star at that moment. And
I
they're
agree.
not given a choice.
I agree.
I'm talking about the victims here that are saying, help me out here. I've got a drunk man in this house. I need to get him, down to the drunk tank.
You know who needs body cams is teachers. Body cams for teachers.
Notice how he changed the
That's
subject.
Hey, I'm trying to end this bit.
That's a different kind of broadcast, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
burial
body-
especially.
Body
Yeah.
cams for teachers, that'd be good to clean up.
But
all
really,
that.
Tom, it's one of the higher.
I see what you're saying.
I don't have any.
So
I
the
don't
reason-
have. No, I don't have any stats for this, but I would venture to say that they like getting called on that because it makes for the more salacious drama.
Of course, sure. It turns
You
you into
know,
a star.
the men
gives
and
you
women,
that
especially if she's throwing pots and pans. Right?
Well, and let's
So-
remember that one of the hosts is a Tulsa PD officer or
Sticks.
former. Sticks.
But the reason I bring up the school is because it's similar to the school situation where there's no reason to be feeding children at an education outfit, and there's no reason for the policeman to be producing television.
I agree.
Okay, that's it for the exciting moment I had to talk about the mayor and the police chief. More to
the
come
end
because
of
I
that
know you're going to love it. That's the link, leverage, and lock for you right there.
There you go.
Tom McKay with 3D Politics. All three of the Davids tonight. Hey, with 3D Politics, all three of the Davids tonight. David D'Ambroso, David Oldham, and David Van. We're going to talk to David Oldham about your trip to New Jersey. You just went out to defeat the beast. Some sort of vaccine bill out there that they were going to pass, but
Yes.
you stopped it. What did you find out? You stopped in New York first and then headed out to New Jersey. What happened?
Yes, New York New York passed a bill a year ago. Their law is all school children have to be vaccinated with a certain number of vaccines.
Just the safe ones, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. What's the problem?
And therefore,
Seems right.
they are actually taking it the next step. They're trying to go after homeschoolers this year and basically force all children to have a certain number of vaccines. And I don't know what that.
Well, I don't know
number
if
is.
you've heard of the herd immunity or not, but
Yeah, that because we're to be treated like chattel and cattle.
I don't have
that's
to.
where it comes from.
I don't have to hear about the herd mentality as long as you three guys.
Okay.
I just get a
That's how the
kick.
herd works.
I just get a kick out of how these are so safe that my kids can't take them, but I'm going to make your kids take them.
Exactly.
You know, that's it.
Well, the thing that stood out when I got there, because in New York, the vaccine maker big pharma Merck, that company named Merck,
They're a
they
bunch of mercs, aren't
they
they?
literally bought a floor of offices or have rented a floor of offices directly across the street from the state capitol. So they are right there lobbying New York
Are
in
they
Albany.
caged in a free speech zone or not?
Well, this was the big thing is I got there and I have not heard a protest as loud at that point in time as loud as that one was. They were passing out passing out referee whistles. There were people with bullhorns, and I mean dozens
Lots
of
of them.
bullhorns.
Yeah.
Even more in New Jersey when I got to New Jersey, but they were passing those things out. They were passing out all sorts of things. I got this T-shirt, which
Wow.
I really like, and had a message that stood out to me, and was not just vaccines, just the science of vaccines.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, if I could read that shirt correctly.
Yeah,
You are
right.
you are free
It's-
to comply, Oldham.
That's right.
It's almost like stealing Les Nessman's famous line, Herb, in a greater sense, are any of us really free?
Exactly. If anybody remembers WKRP in Cincinnati.
It was in the 30s next year.
That's right.
So anyway, so we started off with this really raucous demonstration below Merck, moved over to the Capitol, went inside the legislative office building, met with some legislators and things like that. Had a bit of a tete-a-tete with a bunch of socialists who were wanting socialized medicine done by New York State in New York State. And they literally marched around the block with the big banner and a bunch of people making chants, just like you would expect socialists
That
to
was
do.
in that was in
That was
Albany.
in Albany.
Albany.
This
So your
was all
first
in
step was
Albany in one afternoon.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I hopped the train and went
That's
on
the
down
capital
to
of
Trenton.
Bloombergia, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And where Cuomo is the governor.
The singer. I love his music. Beautiful.
Cuomo rhymes with Como.
Yes.
Yes. And so went down to Trenton. The next day was going to be the first day we had to get through. This would be Thursday. Had to get through this day without seeing too much damage done. One Senator O'Scanlan, he's a Republican,
Yeah.
came up with what he claims and still claims is a fair
Compromise.
compromise.
Yeah.
And that was to have, and their original bill was to force all school children, public and private, attending any form of a school, to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
Whenever I hear that word fair, I know I'm in for an objective truth,
Well,
That's just my alert that,
So-
boy, no opinion here.
Exactly. So
Right.
his fair compromise was to allow private schools to remain private and decide for themselves. Public school children would all be forced to be vaccinated.
Right.
Okay, and that immediately set off the New Jersey crowd, because although it passed the New Jersey Senate as an amendment, they cannot take a final vote for passage the same day.
Yeah.
They must give it to the next business day for proper consideration. It's
Yeah.
in their constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And so they passed the amendment, ended business that day.
On Friday, right?
That was on Thursday.
Thursday.
Next day of business was going to be Monday.
Oh, Friday
so
they're off.
and
yeah.
so they were off Friday, and that left the weekend for a lot of lobbying and so forth.
Okay, now Monday is also going to be the end of the entire session, right?
Well, it was the last voting day of
Voting
session, but session didn't actually officially end until noon on Tuesday.
Okay.
So there was going to be the chance for games all the way through to noon Tuesday, but it ended Monday with the gaveling, the end of session, or you mean the end of that day's business, and no decision made. After lots of chanting, we were there for a good 12 hours.
Okay.
Go
Let me
ahead.
just stop and talk
Yeah.
you talked about the system, the lawmakers. Let's talk about those people that you were with.
Yeah.
Now, most of us have a sense of the Midwestern, mostly Protestant, mostly, I don't know, middle America values.
Right.
Rustic.
What did you see different there? What kind of coalitions did you see that you might not have seen here?
Oh, it was culture shock.
Really?
Very much so.
How'd you deal with the stacks
I
of
mean-
garbage just everywhere?
Well, you know, the beauty is that we created a lot of garbage
Yeah,
on our
you
own.
did. Yeah,
Now,
you
a lot of it could get taken away, but not everything.
Yeah.
They actually had trash pickup, and we were allowed to leave it on the curb. Everybody picked it all up and got it into bags and things like
And
that.
this is
point.
Trenton.
But-
it's not like Jersey City or
Not
something.
as
No,
filthy as the rest of
No.
Jersey.
But then they had it through the night. They had trash trucks come by and clean
Right.
everything up, so it's clean by morning.
Sure. Good.
But we had done all of the policing of the grounds and everything like that.
Okay.
We
What's
had done
amazing
everything
is
we
that-
had been able
That's
to
what I've
do.
heard about Virginia, just preliminarily coming out of Virginia, that there's no garbage left behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
These Second
Now,
Amendment rallies.
Okay, back to this. Now, you're probably going to see more of a union presence there.
Oh, very much
Um,
so. I've got my little CWA union whistle that was handed
There
me
you go.
as one of the noisemakers.
You blow on this if you find Jimmy Hoffa's body or what?
Well, this
Okay.
is a CWA, which
So
is
you're
Communication
going to
Workers
be
of
union.
America.
Now, this again was about a religious exemption, right?
Yes.
That was at stake. And so you're probably a lot more Catholics and liturgical denominations.
We had, yes, very much so. A lot. There was a big contingent of Orthodox Jews because
Yeah.
they were specifically targeted in New York.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And in fact, on the way home in Chicago, and one of these Orthodox Jews, not somebody who was at the Capitol, heard me telling a friend of theirs what I had been up to, and he came up to me and introduced himself by saying, "I am 100% pro-vaccine, but thank you for coming to Trenton and doing what you did, because religiously I am against the mandates." So
Yeah.
while we were probably not agreed politically, we were not agreed on vaccines, we were not agreed on religion, we were not agreed on most anything, we were agreed on the American ideal of
Liberty.
liberty,
Right.
and no dictatorship.
So it
Lack
wasn't
of force.
right. It
Yes.
wasn't the pragmatic sense of is this a good or bad thing. It's the principle, the broader principle. Of,
Certainly in his case, and I met union guys, I met lifelong Democrats, and in fact, a friend of mine who's a lifelong Democrat wants to turn New Jersey and New York red. I mean, that was her. Those were her
Yeah.
words to me.
A lot of
We
leftists
need
are
to
waking
turn.
up. Yeah.
We need to turn New York red. And she is now homeschooling her children after New York's debacle last year, which they snuck in under everybody's radar. And that's the beauty, is that we're not seeing that now. But the coalitions were very much left, very much union, very much denominations we don't see out here to the same degree.
So the to encapsulate the experience, the legislature there in New Jersey had a bill getting ready to pass.
Yes.
People came together, and
Yes.
you guys protested until they said, "We're not going to move on this."
With unions.
Yes.
With unions.
and when
Oh, yes.
And left
what are you
coalitions.
going to do when they get ready to move on it again?
Well, they've already resubmitted the paperwork for the new session. They're trying to kill it in committee and so forth, because they now have it in with the compromise language is where they're starting. The thing is that has taken the left, who were completely for the vaccine mandates, and set their teeth on edge, because they don't like forcing the poor into it while the rich can get away with it.
That's exactly it. That's how you got some Democrats to switch.
Yes.
Is when they seen it as a class warfare.
And that's exactly where they see it now.
And that was the poison pill, essentially, wasn't it?
Yes,
A little bit.
it was the weakest poison pill I've ever seen,
Yeah.
but it worked as that. But the thing is that
Be an
and he-
anti-venom, would it?
well, it's like giving a sober person oxycodone. You know, it still make you high. But the point is that people like O'Scanlan, they don't get the Constitution. They truly believe that this compromise is legitimate, and that the wealthy can get away. If you can
Right.
afford it, then you can get out of it.
Well,
but
yeah.
if you can't afford it, then you're stuck.
But the
Right.
state has a duty to parent our kids for us, according to Scanlon.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Okay, so what's the drama? I mean, all of a sudden, I was watching this live on Big Del Bigtree's network.
Right.
It was just Liza with the folks here at Vaccine Choice. You know, we're talking about it. We're just glued to the drama on this thing.
Right.
And then he comes in after an hour and a half. It was supposed to be a 15-minute recess. Hour and a half later, and you can always spot him with the suspenders, white shirt, the big pot belly. Oh, I'm Sweeney, you know.
Right.
And then he does a few, meaningless votes and gavels them out, and the gallery just erupts.
Yes.
Screaming, yelling, shouting, and I don't know. To me, this is one of those moments where you have laid down the gauntlet. You said, "Don't you ever try this again." I'm
Right.
questioning that they'll even come close to this again.
Well, it will be interesting because of the politics there, and since so many people accept this as a political question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the beauties that I encountered on the East Coast was they have been put between a rock and a hard place, and more so than we have experienced here.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been put between a rock and a hard place so much that they are done. They very much are done. I mean, there were people who wanted to tear the doors open and burn the Capitol down.
Sure.
Okay? And I mean, and I don't
For
mean
my
that
kids.
Yes, and I don't mean that this was an idle threat.
Warriors or guardians?
You're
Well,
saying
no,
these
no.
are liberals too.
Yes.
But they're
Yes.
parents, first of
But
all.
parents first, and they're
That's right.
trying to protect their kids as they see fit.
Yep.
And the point is that when you have people from whom the children did not issue forth, and I say it that way on purpose because it's like, how do you determine who has jurisdiction here?
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, whose property are these kids? As much as children are
yeah.
Well,
property.
that's the tautology of the left. It takes a village.
Yeah.
You know,
Right,
the
but-
property of the state.
Well,
But the point is that property rights have to come in here somewhere, and that's the problem. Is property has been completely rejected for favor of taxation on whatever we want, however we want, for whatever we want,
yeah.
and it dictates to whatever we want for whatever.
And
we
I
want.
want to say this. I know Oldham's got D'Ambrosa's got a question, but I grew up in a union household.
Right.
And especially in these eastern industrial states like New Jersey and stuff, the union folk are good family folk generally.
Yes.
And they are family first. And I say that to say they can be allies for many of our values. And that's something, I know D'Ambrosa is going to ask you more about this, what we can learn. But that's one of the things I wanted to say, is that union folks are still family people with family values.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, despite what the union steward tells them how to vote,
Right.
Yeah, well,
Right.
the left is starting to learn this, are really the true liberals, that aren't part of the left because the left is illiberal. Problem with modern liberalism is what Dr. Piper always says, right, is that they're illiberal. And so they don't care about property rights and this whole idea of these communal values and, we've got this herd immunity. It all goes to communism, essentially.
Yeah.
But besides the fact that free will is an illusion and we're all slaves to our biochemistry, what can Oklahomans learn from New Jersey?
I don't think Dr. Piper would agree with that.
We don't know until we ask him.
No, I've heard him say that many times. We are not slaves to our bodies. But anyway.
Well, I think there are a few things. Number one, we should be very thankful that we have easy access to our legislators in comparison to New Jersey.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that we learned in New Jersey. Although the legislators have an office in the Capitol, they have no assistance, and the doors are locked.
They're broom closets.
They're basically glorified broom closets.
Wow.
They're just to provide a working space for the legislator when he's even in the office.
Right.
And so there is not this going to the Capitol and ability just to go up and get to your legislator and be able to have a conversation.
And some of that actually is good if you look at it this way. I looked it up. The state provides them each a office in their
Yes.
district,
Well, that is true.
and that's a good thing.
That's a good thing,
That
but
sounds
when you are you are down to the crunch time and you are trying to reach them for these kinds of issues,
Yeah.
it is very difficult to get to them. And so we have, there are trade-offs there. We also should be thankful that we are nowhere close in Oklahoma to where they are in. I mean, we're not faced with a vaccine or else kind of a bill here.
Right.
We defeated that a couple years
Not
ago.
since Senator
and-
Yen.
Yes, and I mean
Right.
he's
God
gone
rest
from
his
the
soul.
he's gone from the legislature. He is not gone from trying to promote these things. He's still promoting them. Right
Yeah.
now he's going through the health department trying to get
Oh, yeah.
his ideas through their rules and so forth, despite the laws that they operate under.
Yep.
And we have to fight that. But the other thing is, we also have in Liza Greavy, Don Spencer for OK2A, and in some of these groups, we have people who are fighting for us
In
and
Oklahoma.
coming up
Yeah.
with legislation, who are meeting and able to affect the legislators and have a relationship with the legislators. That does not exist in New Jersey. So there's nobody that's doing that, and their job is compounded again by being forced to go to the districts to reach the legislators, because they spend more time in the districts than they do at the Capitol. So we have a lot to be thankful for. We can't be complacent. We have to learn the Constitution. We have to be getting our people who are working for us to actually promote constitutional legislation. I have a friend in the legislature who I'm talking to about constitutional matters. He wants to defer to the people who are running these larger groups. So if they are not coming up with something that is at least constitutional, then they are deferring to them versus somebody like me who's coming up with a constitutional bill. And we have no hope of getting to a constitutionality.
Oldham, it says here you do some impressions of the protesters in a stand-up routine. Oh no! What impressions of the protest stood out? Darn it!
Well,
Yeah.
the
Simple mistake to make.
actually, the first thing that stood out was the noise.
Yeah.
And two, the level of organization that certain groups brought to it. It was because of a couple of groups. I mean, one group had an RV that they brought and were providing a place for nursing mothers to nurse their children. There was another
Station to
group.
get vaccines, right?
Secretly vaccinating the
That was
babies.
the Walmart I was at the other day that had 4 tables set up and all tables.
You need one of
covered.
those just to stay safe and healthy, folks.
The other thing was the coffee and tea, the soup that was ordered. The one group had literally
No, that's
financed
true.
this
Did I
whole
ask
thing.
you-
If you can't be there, phone it in.
Yeah.
Talk about the meals.
I mean,
Well-
we're talking pizza and gluten-free pizza,
Okay.
gluten-free soups and things like that. Because
mercury
there's so many.
content of that
Well,
pizza?
no, the thing is that there's so many of these kids that were there participating that have
Fragile
gut
health,
issues
yeah.
because
Heck of a turnout.
because of the vaccine injury, and so they were providing all of this stuff. And then they were providing volunteers to get it out and get it into the people who were back demonstrating, so the demonstrators never had to leave. I'm telling you, they financed and some there were hundreds of dollars worth of these things phoned in from California.
These things, pizzas.
Yeah.
Pizzas
and
from
food
out of
of-
state. That's
Michelle
a pretty good
Obama
story.
approved or not?
Yeah.
But fresh fruits
So-
and vegetables, the produce company
Great
came.
job, Oldham,
So,
going out
yep.
there and supporting those
Thank you.
people in New Jersey. Aside here, before we got another story coming up that's a real touching story about a school lunch program. You've just joined us. We are 3D Politics. Right here I am, Tom McKay, your amazing host. I got three Davids, David Van, David Oldham, David D'Amproso. But real quickly, what is the meaning of Posse Comitatus? What is this community? I have yet to hear one person.
Well, posse is a group of friends.
Oh, why did I have to try to speak French? What is this community policing? What do you guys think community policing? I have yet to hear one person in our local media, whether it's the policeman or the I have heard one person say,
okay,
the
you want the history in
I always
Tulsa.
thought that had something to do with standing armies, no?
This first came about in the mid 80s. I remember Drew Diamond was with the police force and had eventually become the chief of police. And Drew, I've worked with him on a number of things. Actually, we were trying to shut down some of the porno theaters. We used to have several of them in town.
Liberty agenda.
Yeah, that's right. But hey, we all have a past, don't we?
I'm talking about antiquity, David.
But the point was, talking with some of the undercover vice officers, and they said, yeah, Drew here, he really wants to bring in this community policing. And I asked at that time, so you want a 1980s definition?
Right.
It is that the cop doesn't just respond to calls and so. The cop spends more time getting to know the neighborhood and understanding the people, getting a background to be more proactive and perhaps avoiding more of the serious calls. And they have been doing it in the trouble spots in town. 61st Peoria.
This is my argument. That's, in my opinion, that is the wrong definition of community policing. Community policing is simply that the police that are policing you come from your community. Not that what you just described was a managerial policy. Hey, here's how I want you to act when you're in the field. That's not community policing.
I disagree with both of you. I think it's ensuring the community gets enough dairy and vaccines.
I want my policemen to have hooves.
Well, the commonality of the two is the police become part of the community that they are serving.
My point exactly. If they have to become part of the community, then they're not from the community to start with. That's what community policing is all about. Is that in the days when the sheriff was your closest connection, the county is your closest connection. If you were holed up in some sort of standoff, they didn't come down, unmask people from somewhere else that you didn't know, shoot your dog and stuff. It was usually, hey, Rick, come out of there. Yeah, Bob, Sheriff Bob, I'm pissed off.
I would actually, I just had this surreal thought.
See how that works?
We should do live PD, but they should overlay Andy Griffith's face over the cops, slamming some guys out of the concrete.
Well, I need to apologize on behalf of the 1980s Tulsa Police Force investigators. Drew Diamond,
Socrates.
God rest his soul if we still have him.
Dead.
Okay. But we were wrong. You were right, Tom.
Of course I'm right.
You know better than the police force, especially all of our former
Drew
police
Diamond
chiefs.
is not the police force. I am just four man's opinion. All right, let's move.
All right.
Or I'd like to see
claim victory.
I'm not done with this tangent yet. I got to go back
me
to
either.
He's got a zinger for you.
I want to see the live PD, like cops with like their sleeve tattoos and neck tattoos and like 450-pound like bench pressing like chests, overlaid in like a 1950s episode of that Andy Griffith show, right?
Adam 12.
Where Barney's trying to do that.
Yeah, Barney 5. I'd like to see him just absolutely ripped and being so polite, like, I don't carry bullets in my gun, because I just talk to people.
Yeah.
I'm not asking
not
to
allowed.
be polite.
Andy doesn't
I'm just
allow
one
him to have
from my county. That's all.
Right, but the commonality is that that the people being affected by the police department have a sense of connection with that cop, instead of just the guy coming in to lay down law and order.
Right. Yeah,
That's
so the
the
management
concept.
and policy.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's not community
Maybe we need a new law to define
To
someone
define-
as a cop. They have to be from the community. They have to be derived from that community.
I'm saying that correct me if I'm wrong, public out there. You just let me know. Tom E. McKay on Twitter.
And NFL commissioners.
Community policing, the original antiquity understanding was that the idea of liberty was that you wouldn't be policed by some people from Rome, for instance.
Correct.
You would be policed by the people from your community, not from a national search for a local police chief, but from the community of the people who live. One of the things I love about buying them. What he said, what I heard him on the news today.
Hold on,
I want
what?
a chief that is from Tulsa, for Tulsa, about Tulsa, cares about Tulsa.
Yeah, but Tom, how else are we going to get a leftist, liberal, socialist cop if
Oh,
we
that-
don't
if we
look
don't
outside
wanna
of
go
Tulsa?
outside.
The force is filled with them.
Yeah, unless we ship some of our own out to Jersey, like we did with the school district with, Deborah Gist. We send her out to the East Coast to become a, full-fledged liberal, and then bring her back, and then she brings in a whole bunch of East Coasters
All
with her.
kinds of garbage we're getting from Jersey.
Well,
Yeah.
Thing about Deborah Gist, I need to cut $22 million from my own budget too.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
But hers is more important than
Well,
yours.
certainly
yeah.
is.
Tom,
Yeah.
isn't chief an anti-Native American ethnic slur?
I'm sure it is somewhere.
Okay, I just had to check.
Yeah.
Yeah, cultural appropriation.
Hey, thanks for being here also with 3D Politics. Once again, on a Monday night, I've got all three of the most important Davids. David Van with SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, and of course, the unflappable David D'Ambroso. You can catch him at David D'Ambroso on Facebook, and you can always catch me at Tom E. McKay on Twitter.
I love his snuggly he's got tonight.
Yeah. It's my comfort blanket.
I was going to say,
That's what I call
it.
we have to call him Linus.
We've got a story more. Speaking of gluten-free, we got this is the Herald Bulletin from January 16th. Oklahoma lawmaker is intolerant of lactose alternatives.
Yes.
Says here this is out of Oklahoma City, lawmakers are considering banning popular alternatives like soy, cashew, coconut, and almond nearly 2 decades after declaring milk the official state drink. Did you know that? Did you know
Is that a headline that just writes itself?
Did you? It sure does.
This is an Indiana news outlet wrote this too.
So about us, State Representative Jim Grego. He's
A freshman.
He's a wrestler, right?
If you spell wrestler with R,
Okay.
he's a Republican out of Wilburton, Oklahoma. Said the only milk product that should be on the in-state shelves are the ones produced by cows, goats, and other hoofed mammals.
Hoofed mammals.
Like those you love: yaks, water buffalo, reindeer, moose, horses, and donkeys.
Yeah.
I've never been proud
Somebody
of
get
a
me-
member of the legislature.
Yeah.
Get me some moose milk.
I'm telling you, this is just disgusting.
So it's an effort, he says, to help dairy farmers, and then he says
No.
it will force federal officials to take a closer look at better regulating milk. Let me tell you what, the feds have controlled milk. You heard me go
Yes.
on my
And
milk
the state.
routine. They control what's called the milk allowance.
Yeah.
Not only how much milk you can produce, but how much you can profit from how much the milk you sell at the price they control. There's
Yeah.
very little more control that the feds could have on milk.
Yeah.
It's the old saying,
As you
control the
look at
milk,
me.
control the mind.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying. I mean, all this is.
I'm sorry, Mom. Mother's milk isn't milk. Who knew?
Have you seen her hooves?
Well, does she wear heels? They're kind of like
I'm telling you, soy
They
milk.
click like hooves.
I mean, my little brother could not have dairy milk. Now, I'm okay with Greg who calls it, to say it's not dairy if it's not. Okay, fine. But to say it's not milk is asinine because it makes every one of our high schools and colleges complicit to undermine state government because all our biology books refer to plant milk as that, plant milk. It's just asinine.
I think we should, especially at the elementary school level, let's go ahead and solve once and for all the plural of milk. I mean, isn't that always a problem? Are you
milk,
doing?
isn't
Can
it?
I get 2 milks, please? I mean, is that really a thing anymore?
No.
But I mean, do you want your milks to come from a moose or a reindeer or a yak?
Oh, this is just silliness.
Well, you can't have mozzarella unless it comes from a yak.
No, I'm sorry, farmers, don't buy this line. This isn't for you. This is for the dairy operation that you're bound to determine. You have to sell all your stuff to there. You can't sell this thing as raw milk to your neighbors. I used to go, when I was working wheat harvest in western Oklahoma one year, I'd go out to the farmer and he'd give us this raw milk. I tell you, that was the best. You always get that top one. It was so rich in butter fat.
Oh, yes, it was.
I'm going to say you're a Jordan on milk.
so
So
good.
David Van.
I tell you what, and yeah, this is the thing. It's not just it has to be dairy, but it has to be pasteurized.
Right.
you know, and homogenized. It has to be special. That only
Catering to the French
these.
lobby.
Well, now this
These
is just
official
for the
classes.
name. Only those things can be called the name, right? And see, the problem is that you get into redefining the dictionary.
Yeah.
And
It's just asinine.
that's
The
just
dictionary's an evolving document.
Yeah.
If you had
yeah,
any
but we have
class
to.
or
We
education,
we,
you
have,
know
we,
that.
we are working on a special
See.
Oklahoma version just because of our state or our state Supreme Court
Trailblazers.
and this legislator and things like that.
Ozempic, though, has a thing where if you are allergic to Ozempic, don't take Ozempic. So why don't you just put on the milk carton, if you think soy milk comes from a cow, don't drink soy milk.
Yeah, you know, it's just like on the non-dairy creamer. They've got a disclaimer that says does not contain any dairy product. Okay, fine.
Aren't we good yet?
Yeah, this is just asinine. And this is pandering.
Well, the
how
other
much
problem
less
is-
are the milk makers going to make on their allowance for forcing us to label these things?
Yeah.
I'd feel a lot safer with the label.
Look,
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
The worst part of this is it's pandering for campaign contributions from Big Dairy.
Okay.
That's
How
right.
cynical,
I
David
still
Van
don't
Really?
understand how they're gonna how it's gonna help them so much. But the point is that it's the entire thing is ridiculous because we're just gonna quibble about words. But the real thing is he's making it. You can't call unpasteurized milk when it is. I mean, raw milk is still milk.
He's pandering for the cow vote. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, no, the pasteurized cow vote, and some of us drink only raw
Yeah.
milk
can't
and
count
things
on
like
the
that.
Guess who
either.
drinks the
You
raw
know-
milk?
You know what, Tom? You're Cherokee part, right?
All
Enough
the way.
Cherokee to claim it. Sorry,
Yeah.
Elizabeth. You and me, we're not. You and I could both draw TP, right? And it might look similar. They probably both stink.
Hey.
But I can't call mine Indian art. You can, according
Yes.
to our legislature. Now, that happened back in 1991, I believe.
Now yours is called cultural appropriation.
Yeah. Except that the U.S. Supreme Court threw that out and said, no, you cannot do. It's all Indian art, depending on what you're drawing the art of, right? And this is that same kind of misguided thing where they're trying to exclude many classes of milk. Yes, milk, science. You're a science denier, Grego. A science denier. All right, I got it out of my system.
Well,
I'm
all
sure
he
your
wants to do-
logical argument has convinced him.
all he wants to do is force those that don't produce milk from a cow to pay more money to label and go through more it's more government regulation.
And it's unique to Oklahoma. In fact, in actuality, what they should be doing is forcing pharma, vaccine makers, and things like that to provide the safety studies and things like that for people here in the state and protecting us rather than actually, just.
You're hijacking my topic now. We're not talking vaccines.
Well, no, the point is
They
that
don't like
it would be
regulations
legitimate
on
if
their
it was for
regulations.
something legitimate.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, it's unfortunate that this insult to the constituents comes from a Republican, because here, Danone North America, who owns everything you ever get dairy, Silk, it's called Silk, So Delicious, Horizon Organic, Dannon, Oikos. Their statement said, "Today we communicate on our products in a way that avoids confusion between dairy and plant-based, making clear references to dairy and dairy-free, like you were saying, or plant-based alternatives as appropriate." Clearly, the producers of these advanced products know how smart the audience is,
Right.
And this Republican has no idea how he's insulting everybody.
I wonder if this is even going to make it to a hearing in committee.
No,
Hey,
he's getting
what?
a pat on the back from his cow buddies.
Yeah.
Casey Murdoch state steak last year. I thought it was the most asinine thing.
And
but
it failed.
It was grandstanding. Nobody was willing to vote against it.
Right.
This is just asinine.
Anyway, that's from the Herald Bulletin, Oklahoma City.
No, that actually came out of Indiana. The Dateline's Oklahoma City, because that's where the story's happening at. Yeah, I'm hoping Bill O'Reilly or some of these national people pick up like they did the hoodie bill and shame our legislature.
I thought Bill O'Reilly was, I thought he was executed for crimes against the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
Somebody.
He's making a comeback. He's making a comeback online.
From the dead, apparently.
He's in a book called Killing Bill O'Reilly.
We need all...
Actually, he just wrote a book on Trump.
That's his 37th book on his timeline. We're only
Killing
at
Trump
22
and the
now.
Secret Service came paid him a visit, right? But no, we just need to shame these horrible pandering things, all for lobbying money, for campaigns.
Shame's very effective. We tend to throw away the tactics of the left just because obviously they're abusing it and using it for what we'd find to not be very productive ends.
Yeah.
But shame is effective, right?
Sure it is.
Shame that you don't know more about the Constitution. Shame that 2% of the electorate maybe knows about the laws. And this is where politics and culture come downstream from the populace. That's why the cops don't know. That's why the judges don't know. Prosecutors, politicians don't know. Because, you know, you talk to enough voters like I do, thousands of them, and maybe 2% of them know about anything that's occurred in the legislative schedule.
We've got a resource here. We want to know what the voters think.
Well,
D'Ambroso,
I do want to bring up. I have an aside here before we got to. So this is another great story. Trump to roll back Michelle Obama school lunch rules on vegetables and fruits.
He hates kids, doesn't
The
he?
Trump administration on Friday. This is by Alicia Cohn off of The Hill.
Oh, no
the
wonder.
Trump administration on Friday announced plans to roll back school lunch standards on vegetables and fruits originally promoted by Michelle Obama. The new standards will allow schools more flexibility because they know their children best, says the Agricultural Department. Sunny Perdue, she's the secretary. And you remember that Let's Move executive order where they advertised the Let's Move campaign?
Right.
And that made you move, didn't it? And that was an executive order from President Obama. Boy, that paid off. The critics on this said the change will pave the way for greasier, more unhealthy foods such as pizza, French fries, and burgers. That's Colin Schwartz from the Center for Science. I think the insult here is they say low-income students are more likely to receive their only healthy meal from that day in school. What's your point there, D'Ambroso?
Wow. I mean, where to begin?
That's just racist. When I was out in California, I was interviewed for a church pastor job. It was a black church in Pasadena. And the pastor was black. He used to weigh about 400 pounds, and he was like Mr. Health Food Diet, lost half the weight. And we're driving around, and I said, Pastor, I see all these soul food restaurants here. I said, what is that? What is soul food? He says that is fats, starches, grease, and cholesterol. And he would every meal he took me to some place where it's like they all had mung beans on the menu. I got sick of eating rabbit food. Finally, on the fourth day, I said, I need my daily allowance of fat, starches, and cholesterol. Nice. Pastor, where's Burger King?
Why is Michelle Obama against culturally black foods? That's what we need to be asking.
Again, it comes down to the force issue. Instead of letting, I don't know why the schools are buying lunch anyway.
Right.
They should be in the education business.
Right.
If they were coming out with students all the time, we're like, hey, let's feed the kids too. But you're unable to even educate the children, much less teach them economics or about the Constitution. But Michelle and Obama thought that they could just executive order and force the children to eat their vegetables.
Well, isn't that the conceit of liberalism now?
Sure,
they're
There's
better
a problem, so you write a law and say you can no longer be unhealthy.
Well,
I will simply make it illegal.
Executive order. Laws take too long.
We'll eliminate
Executive
cancer.
Right.
I'll just write an executive order and eliminate cancer.
Well, but let's also remember that this is part and parcel with the communist agenda.
Sure.
Because this is written. This is not something that I'm making up or,
Again.
Not this time anyway.
The point is that they were about getting the children away from the parents, educating, indoctrinating them, feeding them, being the provider, doing the medicine, doing their health care, and starting that as early as possible, and then taking them into adulthood and on. It was the promotion of
community product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totalitarian whether you're going socialism or anything.
But it's specifically communist that
Well,
was
it's-
working on this
right. Well,
specific
but
plan.
It's all the left.
The
I mean-
totalitarian thing of we're taking over control of more and more of your life, whether we provide for you or not. But most often, it's done by providing for people, and this is why the hardest part of a communist or any kind of totalitarian government is to control the country folk, because the country folk are less dependent on government services.
Right.
And
How do you
so
pull them in?
what happened in Romania when the communists took over is they had to build all these projects. And then before the projects ran down and that, they would go to all these peasant farmers who lived in shacks that they owned, and they'd say, you know, we got a much better place with hot
Would you like
water,
some free stuff?
running water,
Oh.
indoor toilets
Wow.
and everything. And, you know, the people bought it. They
Comrade
moved-
Bloomberg comes in from the capital Romania
Yeah.
out to the rulers and said, peasants, serfs, Slavs, robots, how would you like $70 billion free dollars in
Yeah.
Bloomberg bucks?
Yeah, the problem is, that as soon as they move in, then they go back and they find out their little shanty is bulldozed. And now
Right.
they are fully dependent on the government for their housing. And
Right.
it happens through the giveaway. Now, this doesn't just happen on that level, it happens even with our state when the federal government provides free money to states, and states begin to start federal programs because the federal money comes
The
with
federal
it.
lunch
well, back
program
to-
in the
and
public
then-
Back
school.
to the lunch burger.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the question is, and somebody out there, show me where it's constitutional.
Right.
Where does the federal government, one, have the authority to run an agriculture department? Number two, where does it have the money to tax and then give away our property?
Yeah.
When the Fifth Amendment says we have to be justly compensated for property taken for public use.
Right.
So where
Well,
where is
devil's
any
advocate,
of
where
this?
does it say that the government can't have an agriculture department?
Actually, the
10th
10th Amendment.
Good answer.
Excellent job. Tom got it.
Thank
Tom
God.
got it.
Whoa! I didn't catch that fast draw, Tom.
Tom.
Don't challenge him to a gunfight, guys. Goodness.
But bro, so
He's
how
glowing.
do you- I can't wait to tell my mom. Bro, so but what do you think about the style in which Trump is reversing
Yeah, on her
these?
birthday. I mean, you know, it's... Listen, this WWE Monday Night Raw stuff that Trump does on Twitter, it's the only way to engage the 98% that don't know,
Right.
can't name a single law
Right.
that was written in the last year in the state legislature. I mean, honestly. And people decry, you know, the bedside manner, but, you know, when's the last time you got 306 electoral votes? When's the last time you appointed 180 federal judges? When's the last time you saved the country? So,
Right.
you know,
How many followers does he have on Twitter?
I have tens of millions.
Yeah.
I'm certain.
So obviously he's popular.
And so, you
Right.
know, it gets to the point where I don't even like the methodology. But here's the thing: I don't like dark leafy green vegetables either. But I eat them, right?
Yeah.
I don't like water. It was not my favorite beverage. But at some point, I stopped drinking 2 gallons of cola and started drinking water because I decided that I didn't want to corrode my bones. So you kind of go with what works
Yeah.
and not just what you like and what you're used to, and you grow a little bit as a person and realize that you don't know everything and your preferences don't dictate reality. And once you figure that little gem out, you can move on to being effective like the president is.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons he's effective is because he fights it like it's a personal fight, like purposefully reversing an Obama thing, Michelle's lunch program on Michelle's birthday.
And now we're talking about, and he got a lot of
Because-
media.
well,
You know,
not only
free
that,
media, earned media.
but the fact that he makes it personal is the only thing that gets their attention.
Yes.
Because the left has been attacking us personally with their proxy media, and nobody will fight back ever.
Well-
and Trump and the ones that do stand up for us, it's all
And
platitudes.
we are polite.
It's only Trump that comes back and says, you are fake, you are a liar, and
Well,
it
remember-
tells it like it is. Personal insult.
Yes, and remember, it is not just the media. They themselves, I mean, that pen of Obama's stealing people's property,
Right.
you know, over the waters of the U.S. Executive order thing. The
make
Fed's
collecting
coming in and
rainwater
telling
legal.
you can't rebuild your property after it got burned down in a you know, a
It's only
grass
common
fire or
sense.
something like that.
Right.
All because, you know, you're going to have a rivulet, you know, runoff through your property. that and other things, and the theft of your money.
This disgusting leftist
for
double
their
standard.
various boondoggles.
The government can never be held accountable, or leftists, for their negative externalities. But if you collect rainwater, and goodness, it could potentially do something
Right.
to the desert tortoise.
This is a wetland, right here.
Horton, here's a who. Yeah, I heard on a newscaster here, a local newscaster, somebody might be have committed a serious felony. Yeah, a serious
In
felony.
water
You mean an actual felony?
As opposed to the other kind. Wow.
Just kidding.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
that's the local rhetoric. That's the local news rhetoric. I mean, that's not even high school.
If you're
that's
leftist,
not even
like,
high school writing skill.
perjuring yourself in front of Congress isn't like a serious felony. It's called like a Tuesday.
Well, in the guy's defense, I will say there are a bunch of bills, or a bunch of statutes still on the books in Oklahoma that have never been enforced in years,
Felonies?
and are still yes.
Hey,
Adultery
that's
is a
serious.
felony.
Well, that's a serious felony.
Yeah, it
Yes.
absolutely
Well,
is. If it's so serious, how come has it not been prosecuted when you got lawmakers sitting there in the Capitol
You find
who
a
are
prosecutor
adulterers?
that's been a Fidelis, and you'll let him Fidelis.
Well, that's how all laws work. I mean, only
Yeah.
a set of them are enforced, and that's necessary to just the mess of laws we have, where we have literally hundreds of thousands of laws
Right.
in the United States,
Well,
state and local
and
municipalities. So obviously, if you can't name all of those laws, you can't enforce them all.
Well, not only that, and you can't enforce the enforcement it would take to be in everybody's bedroom. Of course, is illogical. And
well, because that's illegal.
Literally can't do that. Yes.
Well, but the thing is, that's unconstitutional
Right.
because we are sovereign over our bodies and our own property, and government can't do
Right.
that unless somehow we are reaching out from our property and harming others somewhere else.
Right.
And that's not going
I'm
on.
going to say it again. I will champion the cause of any lawmaker who will make the pledge. I don't write new bills to add new statutes. I only write bills to get rid of stuff on the books. that
Yeah,
doesn't
my
belong.
thank
mom
you.
to end mandatory
We need to do
truancy
that.
laws. We need to just end the mandatory public truancy laws. That lowers the number of people in the classroom. That makes it easier. Only the people that want to be there will be there. Quit
Absolutely
forcing
right.
people to be there.
You know,
Well,
on topic, back to negative externalities. You know, you close down all the porno theaters in the city, you're going to have to deal with Paul Tay way more often.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, you really got to think about the implication of what you're doing here.
Well,
David.
at $1,
He knows
he's a
now.
not-for-profit. Trust me. Oh,
have to announce
we
the
got to
event.
promote the event. Tell
Yes,
them
we
about
do.
what's
All
coming
right.
up tomorrow
Oldham,
night.
you were talking about the access to legislators.
Yes.
That is great in Oklahoma, and we've got an example of that. Sooner Politics, along with 3D Politics, we are teaming up with Oklahomans for Health. They are the people who brought a state question 788. Chip and Cynthia Paul will be there tomorrow night at 29th and Harvard, South Harvard in
Fancy.
Tulsa. Yes, it's going to be at the campus of Fellowship Congregational Church. We have 3 or 4 lawmakers going to be there. Scott Fettgatters, who I worked with, and he brought in another Republican and a Democrat. One of them's a pharmacist by day, T.J. Marty. We got Monroe Nichols, who's great on a number of issues, and they're going to talk about our marijuana policy as the legislature kind of finished filling in where 788 was just kind of didn't really cover it. Wasn't written by a professional, was it? Wasn't written by Oldham, I'll tell you that.
Written by someone sampling the product.
But now here's the thing. Write your questions. If you can't be there, then I need you to message them to 3D Politics Live Facebook. Just send that in to us. We need it by 6 o'clock tomorrow night so that we can include it in our database of questions.
Do not send it to Tom. His inbox is crammed full of NFL commissioner emails.
Yeah,
they're trying to hire me.
Ed Hockules is still waiting to hear from him. But now, Oldham, I told you 2 weeks ago to get your question. Have you got your question yet?
pretty much.
All right, he's got. I know I've got my question.
Yeah, mine's easy. What's your
All right.
favorite strain, Lawmakers?
And but anyway, Tom's going to be moderating along with Chip, Paul, and the three of us, Davids, are going to be the ushers and greeters, and we're kind of got
Question
the
collectors.
bouncers if need be.
There you go.
But
Question collectors.
question collectors, yeah, we've got to help sort these out, make sure that what is that? Can you read that?
Yeah.
And that's why even at the event, we're going to have a texting number we'll announce for you to text your questions. And here's the thing: it's not going to be a back and forth from the audience. You raise your hand; it's for one of us three Davids to come give you
The questions will be moderated.
Yeah,
We're going to collect all the
And-
questions and weigh them. If a bunch of people are asking a similar question, we'll just add
Yeah.
that one question and cover all
So
those.
yeah,
people.
a composite question
There you go.
sometimes. But here's the thing: if you don't get your question asked, I've asked the lawmakers try to stick around afterwards. You're going to have access to these guys, and these are
Right.
some of the key people. Fetgatter, probably more than anybody in the legislature, has had his hand on designing not just the statutes, but also the regulatory policy with the OMMA. He's been very involved in that. In fact, he's told me, he says, you don't know how many people couldn't get through to the OMMA, and they contacted me. He said they weren't even my constituent, but I went ahead and did it, and we got them their card. I mean, you got cancer patients. They're on chemo. They can't hold food down. They can't wait around.
Hello.
Yeah.
Why do they have to have a card?
There you go. There you go.
I would suggest that anybody in the industry, your marijuana distributors and people that are growers, this is a great opportunity to come
Absolutely.
down, put your thumb and your ear on what three legislators are talking about,
Yeah.
what their attitudes are. You can ask questions and steer
Okay.
some of the
When
debate.
and where?
All right. 29th and Harvard,
Fancy.
2900 South Harvard. It's right next to Dr. Zellner's Z-Leaf dispensary.
What's the name
Okay.
of the place?
It's at Fellowship Congregational Church. I know the pastoral staff there. I've worked with them many times. They've hosted a number of town hall meetings on mental health policy.
Okay.
They're very engaged in their community, and I work well with them. Our politics is probably pretty far apart, but hey, we're all working to make Tulsa a better place.
Okay, doors
and get
open
our
at
part.
when?
No, at 6 o'clock we'll open the doors to the public. We're going to have some press availability for these folks before then. 6:30 to 8 is going to be the town hall meeting. I've also asked the authors of State Question 807 and 808 to be there. Don't think Paul Tay is going to be there.
No, I don't think
No, he's serving a sentence right now. at the
Oh, okay. I
county
thought the
jail.
theaters were still open.
Yeah, but yeah, and but 807, I've gotten no commitment from them, but we want to make as much much information available to the public. So please be there. If you can't be there, we got to get your questions in. All right.
From the user to the distributor, 29th and Harvard.
Right.
Tomorrow night, doors open at 6. You can start sending your questions right now.
Yeah.
And if you know somebody that's interested, make sure to let them know.
Please.
And until then, it is next Monday night for 3D Politics Live. I'm Tom McKay, your host, with all three Davids. David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com, David D'Ambroso on
At
Facebook.
Glenn Mulready, please return my calls.
Don't forget that. You can always catch me, Tom E. McKay, on Twitter. And I guess that's going to do it for another fantastic episode of 3D Politics.